Hi everybody and welcome back to Noms. I know it's been a few weeks. I took a little hiatus for my birthday and such, and now I'm back. And I was walking through the bookstore and I felt really inspired, so I was really excited to have this, like, my comeback from my little break with a book that I really loved as a child. And that is the book Strega Nona.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes novel Noms.
I love the pictures in this book. It's very like old world, like sepia tones and stuff, so I always love to look at the pictures. But it's a story about a witch, because Strega means witch in Italian, and Nona is kind of like grandmother. And so she makes pasta for the town, and she has a spell that she tells over her pasta pot so that it's an endless supply of pasta. And there's a guy that wants to learn how to do this, and so he kind of tries to get a job with her, and she doesn't hire him. So he sneaks around, tries to find out how she does the spells and everything to make it happen. Except he doesn't stay long enough to find out how she makes the spell stop. So when she goes away on vacation or something, he makes the spell and it's endless pasta and it's just sweetness. Except she punishes him by making him eat so much pasta that I think his stomach explodes. But I thought, what better way to do Strega Nona, which is about this endless pie of pasta, than to teach you how to make your own pasta. And because it's Italian, we're going to do a Mediterranean homemade ravioli. This was a major revelation for me, learning how to do this, because I'm gluten-free. So I'm like, oh my gosh, can you do this and still be gluten-free? And I can tell you that this is, with just omitting one ingredient, you can make your own pasta, and it doesn't have to be gluten-free, with whatever flour you want. I use, it's called Bob's Red Mill gluten-free all-purpose flour. It's a blend of some different flour, rice flour, I think there's some garbanzo bean flour, potato starch, all kinds of stuff in there. That's just an all-purpose gluten-free. But you can use whatever flour you personally like. I tried it with one egg and it tastes okay, but I kind of like my pasta a little eggier, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put 2 eggs into my bowl. Mix that up a little. And then the secret ingredient that makes it gluten-free, because really, egg and flour is all you need to make pasta, but to make it gluten-free, you need something that takes the place of the gluten, which is are kind of like the Legos that hold everything together. So xanthan gum, a lot of people think it's a chemical. It's actually a plant derivative, and but you need to make sure if you're gluten-free that it says on there gluten-free, because some of them aren't. So you get a gluten-free xanthan gum, and I'm just going to put one and a quarter teaspoons of that in there, and that's going to help it stay together. I promise. It's like magic. And so you want that to form the consistency of a nice thick dough. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of work all the rest of that flour into wax paper, flour. This is just going to help us pick up the pieces so it doesn't stick to our little table. Get that. Just make sure you hold one side of the wax paper because it will kind of roll away from you. I tend to actually use the middle and just use my palm because I can push harder. Make it smaller. Alrighty. And one. Come on. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. Keep going till all of your dough is all rolled out. You've got all your little round pieces or square pieces, whatever size that you want it to make or shape that you want it to make. And then all we need to do is make the filling and the sauce. It's so easy. Alright, so now we're going to make the filling. Now this is going to be very simple because our sauce is going to be a little bit more complex. So I've got just very basic, I've got ricotta cheese, and this is part skim, You can get the full fat stuff if you want. You add to that a little bit of cumin, a little bit of garlic powder, pepper, a pinch of my Pacific sea salt. Mix that up. Obviously this needs to be commensurate with your the amount of ravioli you're making. Olives. I actually get these from the Greek, like the Greek olive bar kind of thing at Whole Foods, where they'll have red peppers, they'll have all kinds of different things, which is actually a really good tip. If you think you can't afford to make something like this because it's just you or just you and a loved one, or you're cooking for a friend or family, and you don't want to buy a bunch of ingredients, if you go to like a store that has a salad bar, so you can get a little bit of the ingredient, just what you need, and not have to buy the big thing. Though it all depends on how many people you're cooking for. But I've got these olives, which includes, there's black Kalamata olives, there's these beautiful green olives. And you can pick and choose which ones you like. If you don't like olives, that's fine. I don't approve. But basically we're making kind of like a tapenade, which is just a mixture of chopped olives. Usually has some capers and other things in there, but we're just gonna do straight olives because I like the flavor. I think it's beauteous. We're gonna take a little bit of that filling. We're gonna put it in our ravioli. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little bit of the ricotta mixture, and then I'm gonna top that with some of the olives. And I love olives. If you don't like olives, you could use some red pepper. You could use maybe some cucumber would really be lovely in there. I'm gonna take it and fold it over. Now it's kind of like a little pot sticker or that kind of thing. The dough should be sticky enough that you don't need to wet it, but that's up to you. Some people use like a little egg white around there if you want. And these are more like dumplings. I kind of like this texture and this size and shape, but obviously you could take two pieces and just sandwich them together. It's the exact same process. You're just folding and pinching, folding and pinching. With a nice salad and with the sauce we're gonna make, I'd say probably 6 to 8 would probably be a good serving size. Okay, now for our sauce. I'm very excited about this. We're gonna be cooking with fennel. What is fennel, you ask me? Fennel is a root vegetable that they say, you know, it tastes a lot like licorice, like black licorice. Don't get scared. I know, a lot of people say, ew, that's gross. But a lot of the flavor is going to cook out of it. At least that strong flavor, which if you're familiar with the word anise, A-N-I-S-E, that's the flavor that you're getting out of it. But to prepare it, you want to cut off about 1 inch above the bulb. A lot of people like to use this in salads, like just fresh fennel in salads. It's up to you. All right, I'm going to cut off the base of the bulb, which is that woody part at the end. Cut that off. Then you're going to cut it in half. And just like a head of cabbage, you're going to get that core in the middle that is going to be too fibrous to eat. I make it like a little tint. Is that in camera? And I cut at an angle this way, and then at an angle that way, and it usually just pops right out. And if it doesn't, you just need to give it another little cut on the other side. So there's your core. Now I'm just going to put a nice little, I've got some red pepper that I've already cut. I'm going to take an onion. We've got some diced onions. Okay, there's our onion. And lastly, the last thing I need to prepare is basil. This is a really pretty simple dish. You could actually leave out the fresh fennel and use fennel seed. You're just not going to get as strong a flavor, but it's up to you. It's a little cheaper that way too. You don't have to worry about things going bad. Because fennel usually is only good for a day or so in the fridge. Okay, I'm just going to kind of take these beautiful, deliciously smelling basil leaves and chop those. I bunch them up so that I can kind of chop them all at once. Run it through that way. Now we're ready to make our sauce. Got my pan is heating up, and I'm just going to put some olive oil, probably about 2 teaspoons in the bottom of my pan. Get that heating up. I'm also going to start my pasta water heating up because this sauce is not going to take a long time, so I want that nice and boiling by the time we're ready to do our pasta. This This is a great thing because, again, like, you can make your own. This recipe, you could make your own, just depending on how you cut it. Lasagna noodles, you could make your own spaghetti noodles. You can make whatever kind, shape, size you can think of. And fill it with whatever you can think of. And you could even, God forbid, you could even take these raviolis and fry them. Okay, I'm going to add my onions and my fennel. It's got to make sure it's a hot pan, otherwise it's just going to soak up all your oil. Take a nice layer and let it start working and caramelizing. It's going to kind of diminish that really strong licorice or anise flavor, and it's going to meld well with the onions. It's going to get caramelized. So you want to get a nice little like golden tinge to all those veggies. Fennel is actually a very common ingredient in the Mediterranean, and it is also used in a lot of different things, including sausage. If you like sausage, any kind of breakfast sausage, most German sausages all use some kind of fennel. When it starts to get a little bit of a tinge, I'm going to add in my basil, which is a beautiful smell. It's going to just meld really well with all of those other amazing flavors. I've got some nice color on there. I'm going to deglaze the pan, bring up all those bits of goodness with a little bit of white wine. It's probably about a quarter cup, not a lot at all. And I'll move it around. Now that I've got that, I'm going to add in my red pepper, which is probably about a pepper and a half diced up. I'm going to add about a half a cup of stock. You could use veggie stock, chicken stock. I'm doing a vegetarian, so mine's veggie. I'm going to get that cooking and let all of that stuff in there reduce, which basically means let the vegetables kind of meld all their flavors together. Let the liquid kind of get a little thicker and denser. Now I want to prepare my dish, and I've got some fresh spinach that I've just cut the little stems off of. I'm going to use that to make like a little salad or bed for my ravioli. And I just like I did with the basil, I gather it all up, and we're doing a quick little, this is called a chiffonade because it makes little ribbons. Call it whatever you want. Drizzle of olive oil on that, just to give that a little bit of flavor. And I'm also going to give that a little bit of shake of some citrus, which is going to go great with all the flavors that we've put on there. Okay, so we've got this little salad, which I'm also going to put just a tiny little sprinkle of some salt. Because you want a flavor, like if you're making something and something else is going to sit on top of it, you really want to make sure that that has flavor. Like if you're going to make a stir fry, and you have rice, don't just have bland, gross rice. Make it taste good. Put some flavor in it. Okay. Now, we're going to do the last part of the sauce, which is to add some half and half. I use half and half. You could use heavy cream. It's up to you. I'm going to put, let's see how much I like. Probably about a quarter cup, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to let that kind of cook into the cream for another minute. And while that's doing that, I have my pasta water. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to your water. Don't add a lot, especially if you're adding sea salt. Don't put a ton in there because it will be too salty. But you want to salt your water because it gives it flavor. Make sure this is at a rolling boil. You're going to take your ravioli and just drop it and just be careful. Kind of like slide it into the water. Use a little scoop if that helps from burning your hands. Basically, you want to look to their all the way top, floating on the water. It's going to be about, probably about a minute or so, depending on the thickness of your pasta. You'll also know that the color kind of gets a little bit lighter. Take that, drain off some of that pasta water. And I'm just going to put those really nicely onto my little bed of spinach. The great thing too, because they're hot, they're going to wilt the spinach a little bit, Give that some great texture. Now, I just need to blend my sauce. You could actually have it in a rustic style like this. It is completely up to you. I'm just gonna pour this into my tiny blender because my big blender broke. God, it smells so good. Take this pretty sauce, spoon that over my ravioli. I like to leave a little bit of the pasta exposed on the edges so people would see how pretty it is. Ooh, God, that's good. Okay, and we're going to garnish this with my favorite thing in the whole wide world, feta cheese. I'm going to put just a little sprinkling of feta on there, and maybe a pretty little basil leaf or two. How gorgeous. I get to eat it. Okay. I am way too excited about this. Strega Nona. So I get some of that feta, some of the sauce, some of the pasta with my spinach that's wilty and seasoned and yummalicious and yummy. This truly is really good. Like, I get the little olive taste, a little bite of the olive, the saltiness of the olive and the saltiness of the feta, but the creaminess of the sauce and the great like texture of the homemade pasta. Oh my goodness. Look at this. I want to feed you. I want to feed you. Yes. It's my Mediterranean homemade ravioli, Strega Nona. Go check Strega Nona out. But I want to tell you too that in the next couple weeks that I'm back. I'm going to be doing, next week I'm going to be doing a viewer suggestion, so there'll be a winner of a prize. And then the week after that will be another chopped style Noms challenge. I love you. Have a great week. See you next time. Noms.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes novel moms.